I'm going to say a couple words to officially kick us all off, and then I'll get out of the way and turn my video off so everybody can enjoy James and Hank. Welcome, everybody. My name is Clayton Cheever. You probably don't know me. I'm the director for the Norwood Memorial Public Library in Norwood, Massachusetts. We are so delighted to be helping host this event, this conversation this evening, between two people who barely need any introduction at all. So I will give a very brief introduction here in a moment, but I do want to give thanks to a couple of people who are making this event happen. Dick Haley of Haley Booksellers has helped us really pull this together with the people with Hank and James, and we'll put a link in the chat here for everybody so you can see the website where you can find a great local bookseller where you can find both of their books and many other great books. So I want to draw your attention to that and give thanks to Dick for helping make this happen. And I also want to give a little plug. There's all sorts of things happening at this library and libraries across the Commonwealth. Tomorrow is the beginning of Climate Prep Week, which is an effort across the Commonwealth to raise awareness around climate change. And there's a kickoff presentation tomorrow at 2 with author David Pogue, who a lot of people know, about his most recent book about how to prepare for climate change. You can go to our website at norwoodlibrary.org or numerous other websites around, or you can find out about all the Climate Prep Week programs at a link, which we'll also put here in the chat here in just a couple of minutes. So that's my spiel. I'm going to get out of the way. I just want to thank James Patterson, who's written a whole lot of books, some of which you've probably heard of, and Hank Phillippi Ryan. Hank, I don't know, I'm happy to talk a little bit more extensively. We're really excited to celebrate. We were talking before everybody joined us, and James was telling us just how delighted we are about the new book that you have coming out. Hank is a USA Today bestselling author. She's written at least 13 psychological thrillers, perhaps more that we don't know about or haven't been published yet. She was just showing off some of the awards behind her. We have Agatha's and Anthony's, the Mary Higgins Clark Award, lots of Emmys. She's just fabulous. And I could read more of this, but I think people have heard enough from me, and they're really excited just to have the two of you join us. So welcome, Hank. Welcome, James. I'm so delighted to be here. Just logistically, I will be watching the chat. The chat is going directly to me. So if people have questions, you can let me know. I'm not asking Hank and James to watch the chat. It's kind of hard to watch chat and talk naturally at the same time. So we're not asking them to do that. I'll be watching it. They're going to have a conversation at the end. As our conversation's wrapping up, I'll be watching and just kind of watching the energy. I'll come back on and we'll field a few questions, timing allowing, here at the end. We'll probably go about 90 minutes or so. We're off to the races. Welcome, James. Welcome, Hank. It's so glad to have you here with us tonight.
All right. It's nice to be here. We're going to go back and forth, Hank and I, and it will be very chaotic and fun, I hope. I have to say, for starters, I'm not going to be objective. I'm totally biased. I loved Her Perfect Life. I thought it was really wonderful, wonderful book, as I love Trust Me, and another one that's skipping my brain right now. But I thought it was really fabulous. One notion, just to start off, because Hank has just some of her trophies in the background, 37 Emmys or maybe more as we speak. What's the secret sauce? Why so many awards? How does it relate to your writing the novels? And you won a lot of awards also for the novels. I win nothing, but how does that happen? What's your secret?
Yes, I've read your resume, and I know that you have won nothing and accomplished very little.
Exactly.
In life, and that's fine. I know that you'll do better as you progress. You know, I was reading something about your autobiography, and I promise you that this is relevant to what you're talking about. But you said that your grandmother told you something that's been in your motto for your career, and that was "Hungry dogs run faster."
Yeah.
And I think that's so wise of her, and I think that has something to do with the Emmys, you know, to be able to find a story, then tell a good story, then have people listen and respond, and then get some justice and change the world a little bit. You know, what a wonderful thing to do, to be able to make a difference in the world. And so the Emmys represent that. That's what that's about, is sort of doing the very best story I can do every single time and hope that it will make a difference in the world. And my mom used to, it was never good enough. If I would get a B, she would say, why didn't you get an A? If I would get an A, why didn't you get an A plus? And so thank you, Mom, for teaching me to work harder and just to be authentically into whatever I am doing and do the best I can every time. I mean, as a reporter, sometimes I was a street reporter for years, just going out and be assigned to a story, the cat show or the basketball finals or the school committee meeting or a murder scene. And I thought it's so much fun to do the best story that I possibly can every time, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm. You're just coming off of something that you said there. Why did you decide to write Her Perfect Life? I mean, you're going to devote a half year or a year. In other words, why do we pick that story that we're going to really dig in on? I mean, some people, they just have one book and that's it. But obviously you have a lot of books in you. Why did this one really catch you?
Well, the feeling when you get a good idea, when you get a sort of marginal idea and you think, yeah, all right, that could work. Yeah, all right, that could work. But it doesn't grab you. It doesn't make you have goosebumps and think, oh, yeah, this is going to work. And two things that started Her Perfect Life, two sort of germs of it. One was when I started in television, which was when I was 26, so long ago. And I was just new. And I was in the laundromat. That's how glamorous I was. I was on television in Indianapolis in the laundromat. And a woman came up to me and said, oh, aren't you Hank, the new reporter at Channel 13? And I said, yeah. And then part of me thought, I'm in the laundromat. I'm in the laundromat. Can I just do my laundry? But on the other hand, she might have a good story. So I said, sure I am. What can I do for you? And she said, oh, I have a story for you. And she proceeded to tell me the story and the story of her life and everything else. And I listened because I'm a reporter, and it might be Watergate and you don't want to be the one to miss the good story. But here's the point, and I know you're wondering. When I got home, I called my mom and I whined. And I said, can you believe it, Mom? Somebody called me and somebody was talking to me in the laundromat. They came up to me in the laundromat. Can you believe that? And my mom paused for a second and she said, listen, sweetheart, you chose the spotlight. Welcome to the spotlight. And I never want to hear you complain again.
Yeah. I get people who come up to me and ask a lot of time, I'm sure you get it too, would you write a book with me? And this one guy came up, was down in Florida, and he goes, listen, James, I'd like you to write my autobiography. And I go like, how would I write your autobiography? And he looks at me, he goes, well, you're the writer.
You
so
can
anyway,
make a pretty good
but in this book, you have a journalist, you writing about a journalist in Her Perfect Life. Pros and cons of that kind of thing. When you're writing about something, obviously so much about it, which is good. But any cons to that? Any problems with that?
Well, because people think it's me, and
all right.
isn't me. Lily Atwood, the main character of the story, isn't me. But, I've been a television reporter for 43 years. I've wired myself with hidden cameras. I've confronted corrupt politicians. I've gone undercover and in disguise and chased down criminals. So it would be silly for me not to take that experience and put that in the book. That's what makes it authentic. That's what makes it genuine. But another quick story is that, and where Her Perfect Life came from. And I'm so grateful that we're here talking about this tonight. I promise we're talking to you too, even if you don't want to. When I was anchoring the news in Atlanta, I was finished with the weekend news. It was Saturday night. It was about midnight, and I came home to my home in Atlanta. I turned onto Park Street where I lived, and there were lots of blue lights, police cars, and flashing blue lights. And I thought, oh, maybe I lucked on a story. Maybe it's something has happened. And as I got closer, I realized that the police cars and blue lights were at my house, and if there was a crime scene, it was my house. So I, leaped out of the car and ran up to the police officer, and I said, I'm Hank. And he said, I know who you are. And I said, oh, well, that's my house. And he said, I know. I said, well, what's going on? And he said, we caught a guy breaking into your house. That's him in the cruiser behind. And he said he broke into your house, because he knew you were live on television. And so he knew you weren't home. He knew where I was.
All right. Well, that
Yeah.
sort of a clever thief.
Well, but you see, for me, and this is what I wanted to portray in this book, is the vulnerability of the spotlight. You know, he knew where I lived. He knew where I was. He knew that I was on TV. All those kinds of things. And Lily Atwood, the main character in Her Perfect Life, which I will casually show, Lily Atwood, the main character in the book, is she's got fame, she's got fortune, she's got Emmys, she's got a darling 7-year-old daughter, she's a single mom. She also has a secret, and she tries to keep a secret while she's in the spotlight. Everybody knows Lily Atwood, and that may be her biggest problem, because how do you keep a secret when you're always in the spotlight? So that vulnerability, that publicness that we were talking about in the laundromat and with the break-in, those are the kinds of things that are the dark side of the spotlight.
The authenticity thing is, it is an interesting thing. And I really felt it big time because I did a couple of books with President Clinton, and now I'm doing one with Dolly Parton, which is finished now. And I mean, obviously I've never been president, so I have no idea. And I've never had a Secret Service detail. But when you're writing a thriller and somebody really has all the information, and very few people have that information, what it's like to be president, and what it's like, and what are the secrets of the White House, and what's it like when you're not president anymore, or in Dolly's case, you know, what it's like to be a big music star and to be beloved the way she is. So that really made those projects really interesting to me. And if you take liberties, you're going to get away with them. And we do that in the thriller. So did you take any liberties with this, Hank? Knowing what you know, but you say, well, this might not exactly happen, but I'm gonna go with it anyway.
Well, kind of no.
Well, good.
I can make it a better story. I mean, you sort of, a good thriller, a psychological thriller, the way I write them, is that it's just like real life, only shorter. It's just sort of compressed. So I think that nothing in the book happens that wouldn't really happen. It might not happen that quickly. I have to, you know, I only have a certain amount of pages in the story. But you have tempted me and tantalized me so much, and I know that you don't want to talk about yourself, but I'm going to kind of.
Oh no, I love to talk about myself.
Okay.
But I'm disciplining myself not to do it.
Well, undiscipline yourself, because everybody wants to hear from you and not just from me. We're talking about Her Perfect Life today. We're also talking about The Jailhouse Lawyer, your new book today. We're also talking about ER nurses, which just came out.
See, this is getting obnoxious with me. That's the problem. Yeah, okay.
And also about rewinding to writing.
I'm already hating myself.
We all love you. Rewind to talking about writing with President Clinton. You know, he is the authentic person, but you had to make that into a great story. How was that to work with him?
You know, it was great. And one of the fun, and it's true with Dolly too, we really have become good friends. And I'll just give you one story, because people, obviously with politicians, half the people love you, half the people hate you, which is unfortunate. Because, you know, like nowadays, President Clinton and President Bush are really good friends, and they're allowed to be good friends. And the politics just become, I mean, people get so black and white about things. But I'll give you just a quick thing about Hillary and Bill, that you begin to turn them into humans rather than whatever the heck people go on online about, these hateful things that they do. The first time Sue and I went out to dinner with them was a long dinner, and we've gone out several times now. We went out actually 4th of July together. At any rate, brag. But we're having dinner in this restaurant, and 3 or 4 times during the meal, Bill and Hillary were holding hands under the table, and people don't think of them that way as human beings, and that's one of the things that was so much fun about working with him. We sent presents. He gave me for Christmas Monopoly for Socialists. At one point he gave me a humidor, and he knows I don't smoke. And so I called him up and I said, well, should I put bubble gum or chocolate cigars in the humidor? He said, oh, bubble gum, because at our age, we need to exercise our teeth and our gums and stuff, you know. So, but that's the fun stuff about it.
Yeah, I mean, how lovely though that he and his wife revealed himself to you both, to you and
Yeah.
your, that they didn't feel
I
that they,
think that's why we've become friendly because they know we're not there for any reason. We don't want anything. We're not going to talk politics. We're going to talk about the kids and whatever the heck it is and have fun and laugh. And we get him laughing, he gets us laughing. It's good.
that's great. And so
Yeah.
can I ask you about Dolly Parton as well? How amazing that you're writing or have written a book with her.
Yeah.
How did,
Well, I
how,
tell you, the Dolly thing is, I went to Vanderbilt, so it was fun to get down to Nashville anyway. And I went down to see her, and we got together for about an hour and a half. We hadn't agreed because we were thinking maybe kid stuff because we both give books to kids, and then I had an idea for a kind of a cool, so almost like A Star Is Born, but with a young country and western singer. And so we talked about that, and then Dolly and and we got along perfectly right off the bat, and we just made the deal right there. No agents, no lawyers, no baloney. Boom, that was the deal. And then the agents and lawyers said, what? We said, no, that's the deal. It's all done. Get out of our way. And I think getting rid of middlemen is not the worst. Middlemen and middlewomen is not the worst thing in life. But anyway, so then I come back home, and like 2 days later, literally 2 days later, I get her notes on the outline that I'd had for the novel, which we eventually wrote together. And she'd already, and there's songs in the outline, okay, bunch of songs, because this young woman that comes in, she's a really good singer and she's a great songwriter and she's a storyteller, which Dolly is. At any rate, and Dolly has already written 7 songs. And here are the lyrics for the 7 songs. About a month ago, Sue and I went down to Nashville, and she played the album for us. So it's going to be, I mean, kind of a historic in a way. The book has an album. You don't buy them. You can buy both, but you don't have to. They're not together. And it's just such an unusual thing. And it works so beautifully that you can read the book and then listen to the 12 songs, and you know where they came from in this woman's story, or vice versa. You could listen to the album and then read the book and hear. I'm not trying to sell the stuff, but it's just kind of a cool thing. And the songs are great. They're great. I mean, she put so much love into them, and her voice is terrific. She's still singing up a storm. So
oh,
at any rate, so, yeah.
she's quite amazing. Do you think that you got along because you're both storytellers?
I think we got along because she's a hungry dogs run faster person. We both come from nothing. My father grew up in a Newburgh, New York poorhouse. That doesn't mean anything, but I think we both were like unlikely to make it.
Origin stories, yes. I
So
mean, I
we
think
came
the
from,
origin story.
wasn't the people from my town and people from where she came didn't become famous. We work hard, we have a skill set, which we make use of, and we're both funny. So it was cool. And it continues to be cool. She actually, for my birthday, she sang "Happy Birthday" to me over the telephone. We'll
Come
get
on.
that. I have one other Dolly story I'll tell eventually. So anyway, going back to the important stuff for Perfect Life. So Lily, one of the important people in the book, is kind of perfect, or she seems to be to the outside world. So how about Hank? Are you looked at? Do people see you? Do they see you as kind of perfect? Are you like the morning show, like Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston, or what's the deal?
What do you think? What do you think, Jim?
Well, I don't know, because what I see is perfect.
No, I mean, here's the thing
So,
about it. Just to
and you don't
seriously,
have to get into this. We don't have to. You're not doing your autobiography, or maybe you are, but
well, look at it in a big picture because it's really a question that's quite on point if you think about it from the standpoint of television. Because as a reporter, any reporter, not just me, but me and Lily and every other good reporter, I can never make a mistake. I can never make a mistake. I can never call someone the wrong name or choose the wrong word or miscalculate or misunderstand a statistic. If I can never, and I have to do it live, and I have to look okay while I'm doing it. And at every moment, something could go wrong. A light could fall on me, or a crazy person could jump up and down behind me, or there would be some horrible breaking news or good breaking news. Once when I was doing a live shot in front of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it was 2 minutes till 6, and I was on at 6, and it was getting dark. It was must have been November. It was getting dark, And at 1 minute until 6, the press person ran out of the U.S. Attorney's office and said, "Here's the decision." And I looked at it and I couldn't read it because I had my contacts in and it was too dark and the print was too small. And it's like 30 seconds away. I think, what am I going to do? So I just took my contacts out and threw them on the ground and read it. And no one would ever have
I
known.
wonder if that's changing a little bit now in terms of we don't want perfect anymore as much. And people like Hoda and whatever, not, she's not strict news, but I mean, and maybe that's going to, you know, I did this thing because I wrote a book about Aaron Hernandez and then I did, I think it's 2020, whatever it was. And I actually did the interviews and stuff. And I went up to Boston and I interviewed the mother of the person he got convicted for, that one murder that he got convicted for, that person's mother. And I'm doing the interview, right? So I'm supposed to be like the 60 Minutes kind of person, whatever. And she's talking, and I'm freaking crying. Okay, can you believe that?
Yes,
So here is, but I thought it was, in a way, I said, you know what, that's great in a weird way, because that's the human reaction of a human being talking to somebody who's telling this, you know, heart-wrenching story, and not with the fake look of you. There's one woman on CNN drives me crazy because she always looks like her child died like 60 seconds ago. No matter what it is, she's got that. Oh, you know, it's like, stop already. Oh, yeah, I don't. Maybe it's just her face, but it just drives me crazy. Do something else. Smile. Do, you know, whatever.
well, it's interesting.
At any rate, I'm sorry, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, when I worked at Rolling Stone magazine years ago, I worked with Richard Avedon for a while, the photographer,
Yeah.
and he was very he was adamant about that people on television should just wear jeans, and a shirt. If they're out on a story and they're working hard and they're out in the field, why is everybody wearing little suits and ties? And I think it is evolving. It is evolving into that we do want to hear somebody who's really doing the news, somebody who really cares about it. And think of how you connected with her. You know, think of how she felt talking to you, that she knew that you really did care about what she was saying and that you weren't being sort of the hard-edged reporter type person, but
Yeah.
that you were interested in her story.
Yeah, I had no choice. There was. I mean, yeah. Well, it's
A sad story is a
But
sad
anyway,
story,
but it
and
was,
that's why your books are good as well, because they're, you know, I hate to use the word, the publishy word, but they're just relatable. We understand the people in your books and how they feel and what they need and what they want and how far they go to get that, and you create that reality. And of course, it's emotional. If you weren't emotional, you wouldn't
I'm
be.
kind of a big fan of Heart and Head, you know, where we have a logical side, but we also have an emotional side, and whatever, trying to get that into the books. And, you know, Alice Cross wouldn't be, it's not in the beginning, oh, there's a lot of murders and stuff. Yeah, but anybody does that. The reason people keep reading Alice Cross of the Women's Murder Club is they were into the characters. They liked the humans. They liked this family guy Cross, you know.
Exactly. And this is exactly what I was thinking about as you started to talk about that. I thought, oh, Alex Cross. You know, here is a good guy with a family who loves him, and we love him, but he's also honest and determined, and you know, he is somebody that we want to read about, and he's somebody that we want to know. And Nana Mama and everyone, we want to know them. Did he come first, or did a story come first? How did Alex Cross evolve?
Well, weirdly, I'll get off the Cross quickly, but when I wrote the first 50 pages, it was Alexis Cross. It was a woman. And I wasn't liking it the way it was, and I changed it to Alex, and it started to work better for me. A little piece of it comes from when I was growing up, my grandparents on one side had a small bar and restaurant, and the chef, the cook, whatever, was a Black woman. And at a certain point, she was having problems with her husband. She just moved in with us. And for about 3 years, I was a little kid at the time. And that's sort of and I loved her. She was great. And she didn't have to take care of me. She just, you know, she didn't have any duties in the house. But I spent a lot of time with her family, and they were funny and witty and smart, and music was good, and the food was good. And that's a little piece of where the Cross family came from. That experience that I had. And the town was very, you know, it was a real mixed town, black and white, and well, Hispanic, Latino, whatever.
But also the emotion that you felt with the family, the comfort
Yeah.
that you felt and the love that you felt with the people who you were with. What about Cross? What about the last name Cross?
Uh, there must have been a good reason. I don't know why. I don't remember why. The first book I read, the Thomas Berriman number, that Thomas, and I was like a little literary snob. I didn't read. I just read, Vanderbilt Graduate School, blah, blah, all serious stuff. Thomas was for Thomas McGuane,
Uh-huh.
was a really good kind of literary author. And when I was writing the book, I sent out to like three young authors who I really liked. And he was the only one that wrote back. And he wrote from Montana. He said, "Dear Jim, write a good book. Your friend Tom." So that's what Thomas. And
Stern-hearted.
then Berriman was the poet, John Berriman, who was one of my favorites. And so there was the literary snob, Thomas Berriman. I don't remember with Alex Cross, though, where it came from.
I
At
was
any rate, so getting back to the important stuff here, Her
Well,
Perfect
let me
Life.
say one more thing about the Thomas
Yeah,
Berryman
sure.
affair, because the Thomas Berryman number, because any of the people who, any of the hundreds of people who are listening tonight who want to be authors, that is such a good story about how that book evolved and the walls, the obstacles that you hit with getting that book published and what finally happened.
Yeah, well, uh, sent it out and got 31 turn downs, which is interesting.
31 rejections.
They were several of them were nice turn downs, if there is such a thing. And then the book went on to win an Edgar as best first mystery. I was a baby. I was like 26. Wow, I was 26. Wow.
Remember that?
I could dunk a basketball. Wow. But I tell you what, in those days, Little Brown, who was the publisher, they were in Boston in those days. They were on Beacon Street, I think. And I will never forget going there, and I still can't believe that it's going to happen. I'm going to get a book published. And this very nice person brought me into their library, and I'm waiting for my editor to come down. And there's a fire going in the fireplace. And I walk around this light. I'll never forget this. It was like unbelievable. And here's like Catcher in the Rye, and here's Armies of the Night and Norman Mailer, and here's some, I don't know, whatever, all these famous books at Little Brown. I'm going like, I'm part of this now, a small part, but part. And it was just glorious, glorious, glorious. Yeah.
I mean, that is a, did you see that that was the beginning of a career in writing, or
I
did
don't know. We're just going to tell my life story here.
I love it.
I was working and I got a call, and there's this woman from the Mystery Writers of America. And she said, "We couldn't find you." I don't know why they couldn't find me, but we couldn't find you. Okay, well, you found me. Well, you have to come to the Edgar Awards dinner. It was like that Saturday or Sunday. And I go, "I can't come." And she goes, "No, you have to come. You've been nominated for Best First Mystery." And I go, "No, I'm sorry. I don't know what was, there was something going on. I can't come." And blah, 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 blah. And she said, "You have to come. You won." I said, "Okay, well, I'll go somehow. I'll figure out a way to go." So I went. But going there, even, I was sitting in the audience, and I brought my mom and dad. And I still was going, maybe she lied to me just to get me here. So there still was that sort of like Academy Award, who's going to win kind of thing. But when I got up to give my little speech, I didn't really have a speech. I don't know why. And what I said was, and that's all I said, "I guess I'm a writer now."
Uh-huh.
And what I meant by that was, especially in those days where people weren't, writing stuff on the internet and stuff, it was like if somebody met you and you said you were a writer, they would immediately say, "Well, what have you published?
Or have
I read any of your stuff." And if you said, "Well, I haven't actually published anything," they would look at you like you're a mad person. Mm-hmm. "What do you mean you're a writer? You haven't published anything?" You say you're, So that was the thing. I guess I'm a writer now. So I had no idea whether anything would come of it or, whatever.
Were you already planning to write another book?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it was terrible, by the way. Second book was awful. Getting back to the big stuff, though. So betrayal is a big theme in Her Perfect Life. There's all sorts of betrayal in there, and people keep disappearing. So here we have kind of two interesting currents in psychological thrillers. One is that very real psychological thing of a betrayal and how to recover from it, and and some of us, most of us have felt betrayal somewhere, even if it's in a small way. And then the pot boiler thing of people disappearing all over the place. So talk about that kind of the real emotional depth of themes like betrayal, and then but it is a thriller, so we're gonna do some stuff like have people disappear left, right, and sideways.
Well, it's interesting because there was a thing on Twitter that said to describe your book in 5 words. And I thought, okay, I can do that. That's not a problem.
No.
Exactly. Help me now. But it turned out to be this kind of interesting thought process that where you really distilled it down to the thing. And in Her Perfect Life, it is sisters, betrayal, guilt, fame, and revenge. Because think of the powerful emotions those are, and think of the relationship between two sisters. And I wanted to take the essence of a thriller, but also the sort of the thing we can all relate to is family. That's what a good thriller is about, people and their relationships, and what closer, stranger, weirder, more contentious, potentially more loving, potentially, than sisters. A younger sister and an older sister. And what would break a younger sister's heart if the older sister disappeared and she had no idea where she was? And that's the domino that falls at the beginning of Her Perfect Life. And as for the
power of that right now with the girl that disappeared out west, and how everybody,
Well, any missing person, because it's so possible. It's so possible that someone is there one day and gone the next, and you don't know where they are. And Lily in the book says, is she alive? Is she kidnapped? Is she sold into indentured servitude? Is she kidnapped by aliens? Has she been made a princess? All the things that a little girl might daydream. And she spends her days as a reporter, but looking for her sister. And that's sort of the engine of the book. And I did a lot of research into revenge, the revenge element of it, of what psychologists say about whether revenge is satisfying. Whether when you're really harmed and someone really does something that you think is unfair, or you're wronged, and you think, oh, I'm going to get back at that person. Are you really happy when you do that? And apparently, according to psychologists, and they've done a lot of wonderful studies about it, is that it rarely is satisfying, and that the few times it is, and then it's only briefly, the few times it is when the person who is taking their revenge tells the person they're revenging and says, it's me, and here's what you did, and I'm responsible for this thing that happened to you now, ha ha. And
I've read a couple of things about different cultures where usually small, but where the culture is to forgive, no matter what, no matter how horrible the crime is, and that psychologically that works better because it just relieves it. The culture is, and that's what everybody, and you forgive, no matter how horrible it is. I forgive, and that apparently works better than holding it in and whatever. Probably not for everybody, but it's an interesting side thing. The other little quick side thing on that is, with the disappearance of the Petito woman for a while, and a couple of people have talked about, and I think rightly, that when a white girl disappears, it's a big story. Which is an interesting thing.
Yes, I agree with you.
I don't want to go crazy on that area, but it is.
I think that's terrifying. And every time this happens, this is brought to the fore. And every time this happens, we realize, okay, we need to watch out for that thing that we lean on because it's somebody who looks like me. Then I care about that, and that's not how we should be handling this.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting that it just doesn't come up with as much, or almost never, with other. One other quick thing about the book, which I find interesting and difficult, which is in the book, because you follow the two sisters in the past and in the present, and I think that's really challenging. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I always think of that movie, Fried Green Tomatoes. And they did a really good job of keeping me interested both in the long flashbacks and in the story in the present. But more often than not, when people do that, it's terrible to me. They don't make the past come alive at all. And I'm like, I almost want to skip it. Sometimes they'll italicize it in the books to make it easier for me to skip it.
Yes.
Like, okay, here comes, I'm skipping this because it's boring with it. But you did it really well. So just a little bit. Well, what was your
I hear you so much about that. And in italics, I just skip as well. I mean, I can't read that. It's hard to read. And it means I don't really know what my story is. And so I'm just going to put this stuff in here. Forgive me if anybody does this. What I tried to do is, and I think I can explain this, instead of making something happened in the past, it's in the now. It's just in another now. So it's happening now. Not
Yeah.
something somebody remembers or reminisces about, and it's not you float through a memory. It's like, here you are now with Cassie, and it is now 15 years ago, and you're in that world. So it is happening now to her.
I think that's great, and it's a great tip for anybody that's listening who, as a writer, where you're presented with a problem, and you have to figure out a way to solve that. And I think the notion of trying to write it like it is happening right now is a way of dealing with this difficult problem of how do you make that part of the story as vibrant and interesting as the other part. I think that's great. I think it's great advice for people if they're stupid enough to write something in the past.
Exactly. I'm 66,000 words or so, maybe 70,000 into my new book. And I'm at that point where I think, whose idea was this? I have no idea what's coming next. And this, I thought it was a good idea, but I'm not sure it is. How do you do that? I know you're famous for your outlines, and I'm yearning for an outline,
I think the piece of it is, do you use outlines?
No.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah. It's a mixed bag with writers. I mean, everybody has their own little style up to a point. Yeah, I'm big on outlines, but not following them. But I like to lay it out, and I was actually in the plane out here. I had one. I was working on an outline, and with my outlines, you could read it almost like a novel. It'll tell you the whole story. Now, I may change a lot of, I'm very, because when you start writing, you never know. All of a sudden, a character gets a lot more interesting than they were in the outline, and you give them more stage time. Or sometimes I'll get to the end and I love the villain. Oh, I can't really knock off this villain. This villain's going to hang around. Or I thought it was going to be interesting, but it's slowing down. I call it marching in place.
Oh.
It's just and that's a typical thing with writers. They hook you, they have a good thing. They really only have the one idea, and it just starts marching in place because they hadn't really, where's this going to go? That seemed really promising, but that's it.
It's one of the things I learned in being a reporter is that in writing a story, there's always forward motion. The book progresses, the story progresses, and I always keep that in mind as I'm writing. But Sue Grafton used to call those surprises that you're talking about when you decide, oh, I can't kill that guy, I really like him, or that somebody isn't that important, or that somebody blossoms into this brilliant character. Sue Grafton used to call that the magic of how our imaginations blossom and change and tell us things that we could never have predicted. And that's kind of what gets me to the computer every day, is that I think, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And I can't wait to see. And the only way I can find out is by writing the next line and the next sentence. And
even with an outline, I'm that way, because I don't know. Sometimes I'll go, okay, this, especially because I'm not a one draft person. I've never been. And sometimes I'll go, well, this chapter went this way, but you know what? I want it to go this way now. So it's going to go a different way, and it begins to change where the story is going to head, which I think. So I constantly am, twisting and turning and surprising myself, and that keeps it interesting. The other piece for me in terms of next books is I'm always hoping this is the one. I have in the autobiography, what did I say? I wanted to write the kind of novel that would be read and reread so many times that the binding breaks and the book literally falls apart, pages scattering in the wind, and then they say, I'm still working on that one. But that's the whole thing for me. I'm always thinking,
that I have written on my piece of paper.
oh, that's fascinating. Okay, yeah.
Because I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
no, and that does drive me. And one of the things about the COVID, the only good thing I think about it, well, there were two good things. One, I broke some habits, like going to the movies too much and stuff like that. But I focused more on the writing, and that's why I wrote the memoir, which I hadn't expected to write. And I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. I'm surprising. But I think since then, I've been doing some of the best work I've ever done. And I just think it got me focused again. It got me excited again. I don't know, but some good things happened. And that I think is nice where, I always say I don't work for a living. I play for a living.
Because this is fun, right? This is really fun writing.
And some writers don't feel that way, but I do. And it sounds like you do too, which is what, so you don't do an outline, but in terms of your process, like when you're writing, what's your favorite swear word?
Well, here's the thing. Now, that's a really interesting question, and more than you know, because as a television reporter, and you'll see this in my books, as a television reporter, I can't swear. Because when the lights fall on me and something happens and it's live, the synapses in my brain can't have connected to say things that you're not allowed to say on TV. So I just don't say them. So people make fun of me all the time because I say, "Oh, rats." And they're like, "Rats?" And I say, that's as far as it's going to go.
Darn.
When I'm berating myself, yeah, gosh darn, exactly. When I'm berating myself for having a bad writing day, really, I just say, whose idea was this? I really stink. I can't possibly write. I know I wrote books before, but I can't do it anymore. And I don't know who wrote those other ones because I sure didn't do it. And then I go out and whine to my husband and say, this is not going to work. This just isn't going to work. And he
says,
does
he agree with you, or does he then pop
no, he says, you always say that.
Okay, all right.
And then I say, but this is the time.
Oh, you're not listening. God damn it. Listen.
This is the
it's
time.
Not working.
It's not working. And he says, you always say that too. And that's very sweet of him and very supportive of Jonathan. But I do think
words that you have for yourself, a good day, a good week, a good whatever.
What I do, and I love this actually because it does seem to be successful, is that I don't think about writing this whole book, 100,000 words. Oh my golly, you can't do that. I think I'm going to write my words for the day. I'm going to write those words. And when I do that, that means I succeeded. And at the end of the day, I think I did my words, I rock. So if I set myself up to succeed, then the next day that gives me the fuel to go back and do it again. Because I love to feel that I've done a good job. And I can tell that.
How many days a week do you write?
Well, it depends. I'm in launch week now, as you know, for Her Perfect Life, and I'm sneaking in. I wonder if my editor is here listening to this. I'm sneaking in writing every day. I try to do it every day because you have this story in your head, and the people are alive, and the story is moving, and people are thinking of things, and people are making decisions, those all important decisions. And if you leave them, sometimes they just deflate a little bit, and then I have to go back and remind myself of who they are. So, and then I think, oh yeah, that's right. Now, then I can go on. Writing every day is hard. It's just the world happens, and you have to go to the dentist or whatever. But Dennis Lane used to say that he thought about his books so much that when he got home, he was surprised that more wasn't written in the manuscript. It just seemed like it should have osmosed into his pages.
Who's that writer? Gregory McDonald, I think it was, with Fletch and the Fletch books. He was from up there, right? Yeah. And interestingly, he would outline and outline and outline and outline, but all in his head. All in his head, until he felt he had the whole story, and then he would sit down and just out it would come. Did you write more than one draft?
Oh yes, oh my golly, absolutely so. Sometimes I'll get every day I sit at my computer and I read what I wrote the day before, and then I go farther. And then the next day I read what I wrote the day before, and then I go farther. So there are many iterations of the story along the way. And then I go back when I read the whole thing, and then I think, oh, I see what this is about now. This is about sisters. This is about redemption. This is about betrayal. Okay. Then I go back and make it be more that. So that there was a great quote from David McCullough who said, somebody asked him, do you have a theme for every book you write? And he said, yes, I do. And I write the book to find out what it is.
David McCullough, he probably has 50 themes.
Yeah.
Unless he can write 900-page books. It's incredible.
Incredible. And absolutely.
U.S. grant, 950 pages, whatever. But I actually thought it was terrific.
Yeah, he's so brilliant, and the theme thing is important. But you can't plaster a theme on a story. This theme has to emerge from the story because of what people do and because of the decisions that they made. I want to know what outline you were writing on the plane.
It's what was? Oh, it's I bought the rights to The Shadow.
Really? Lamont Cranston?
Yeah. And that was Doc Savage. And so the one Shadow came out already, and we put it out in trade paperback. So I have to do another Shadow. I have to keep doing them every couple of years or I lose the rights. So we're working in Hollywood. I have the film rights, a whole ball of wax. And then the Doc Savage, and I had no incredible interest in it, but the Doc Savage really worked out great. That's coming out, I think, next year. I lose track of this stuff, but yeah, it was fun and a nice challenge. And, even, now I'm doing these Audible podcasts, and those are really fascinating too. There's one coming out in October called The Guilty. And it's such a cool, and it turned out great. And it goes back and forth between police interviews and a massive Broadway play, a mystery by the greatest mystery writer in the history of mysteries and whatever. And you found out from the police interview, somebody got killed there. You don't know who, but the play is part of the podcast, the actual play. And John Lithgow is the main actor. John Lithgow, what's her name? Ron Howard's daughter. I hate to say that. Dallas Bryce Howard and Peter Gallagher. It's a wonderful cast. And it's really cool because it goes back and forth between the police interviews and then the actual play. And the play is a mystery. And Lithgow's great. At the end of it, he actually sent me the nicest letter in the world. He said it was a great part and he really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So quick questions about that, though. So you had to write police transcript of interviews, and you had to write a play within a play, and then you had to write the concept of this audio thing. How different was it to write that than it was to write?
Well, I think there are two real issues with those. One is they want them to be 5 or 6 hours. Mm-hmm. That's a strain, man. I mean, try to do a 3-hour movie. So that's the one thing. To figure out how to keep it moving and interesting and whatever. And then you have the issue about you have to keep letting the listener know who the hell's talking. So you keep going. So Hank, what happened after so Clayton, and then what happened? So here we are again, Hank and Clayton and Jim, you know what I mean? Which is kind of clumsy, but it's okay.
And this is one of the things you learn about audiobooks, though, isn't it? Because in a book, you can look back.
These are podcasts. It's not like a book where you're hearing
it. You're hearing it.
Yeah.
You need to, if you're envisioning it, the hearer is envisioning it. They need to be grounded in you don't have video like a movie. You don't have words like a book that you can turn back and say, who is that guy? So you have to plant exactly what the visuals are.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I refer to it as movie for the ears.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're like the old radio, and they're at least a couple I've done. They're really well produced. We did one, Chasing Ghislaine or whatever, which was a little off of the Epstein thing. There's an interesting thing. She's obviously her story is kind of fascinating.
Got to
be. It was Vicky Ward from Vanity Fair. Yeah, Vicky was great. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, tell us a little bit about ER nurses, though, very quickly.
Okay. In my opinion, I've written two important books. One was Walk in My Combat Boots, which came out this year, and I wrote it with Matt Everson. Matt was the movie Black Hawk Down.
Sure.
Matt was the actual sergeant who was there, and Army Ranger, and then ran Army Ranger training school and I saw, he's a friend of mine from Florida, and I saw him doing some interviews, and the guy is great. And if you think about people that come back from war, for the most part, they won't talk to civilians, their family or whatever, about what they went through. Matt gets it out of them. So that book, what we did is we took these 40, 50 page outlines and then turn them into these 5 or 6 page stories where you got a sense of that soldier. And anyway, and it just worked. You always hope they're going to work out. It worked out great. I think it's an important book because, all right, so then we decided we're going to do one for
crying, though. Talk about crying. Those stories are as poignant and moving as anything could possibly ever be.
Well, we decided to do one for ER nurses. And actually, with the interviews, Matt called a couple of times. He said, I need a week off, because our mission was that if you are a nurse, or if ER or otherwise, you would say Eversman and Patterson got it right. They got it. And if you're not, you would say, I had no idea about the lives of these people. I had no idea, even pre-COVID. No idea how intense their lives are. I don't know how people do it. With the combat boots, we had a line that we talked about. Now people, when they say thank you for their service, you'll know what you're thanking them for. It's the same thing with ER nurses. You read that, you will never go into the hospital the same way. As you know, Hank, we send, sometimes the publishers send them out for quotes and stuff. They sent ER nurses to Sanjay Gupta, who never blurbs, and he just sent back this unbelievable thing. He said, this is so accurate and true. And then they sent one to Sebastian Junger, and he said it's one of the most moving books he's ever read. And he said when he finished it, he said it had changed his life forever. And I think it's that powerful. It's just an unbelievable book. And I also think that it's rare for me anyway that I read a book or see a film or whatever where I go, that totally changed the way. I'm sorry about the dark room here, but it's whatever. It's dark in Chicago. It's a dark city. What can I say? But I do think that it's one of those books where people go like, I had no idea. You will never go into the hospital the same way. You will understand, and the stories. I mean, it's just one after the other.
Well, there's the serial killer as the patient, and the crazy person who put something inside himself, and
some of them are so touching. I mean, and there was one where this nurse talks about they brought in like a 2-year-old who had been accidentally shot in the stomach, and they said there's no hope for this kid. And then like a week or so later, the nurse in the hospital saw this kid running down the hallway in a Superman outfit, and it's like there's the glory of it when it happens. Some of the like there was one nurse, and was in there with the wife and husband. The husband was dying and clearly going to die, and she said to the wife, "Is there anything that would cheer him up?" And she said, "Oh, if he could only see his dog." And he said, "Well, I can't do that." "Well, you know what? I'm going to do it." She snuck the dog into the hospital, and the dog got up in the bed with this dog. I mean, things like that. Very, and things like a mafia figure threatening the life of one of the nurses, or I mean, it's incredible, the story.
There's one where a nurse tells a person who's very ill, "We're doing this operation and you'll be fine." And then he dies.
Yeah.
And she's so upset because she says to her father, "I lied to him. I lied to him." And her father says, "No, you didn't lie. He will be fine. He is fine. He's fine in the afterlife."
Yeah.
you know,
Or there was one guy, and he's dying, and he wrote. He said, "Will you please take dictation, because my wife isn't going to get here in time, and I want you to this one note for her." And the guy wound up living, and she still had the note, and she brought it up, and the wife was in the room, and I don't remember whether she read it or he read it, but there was that note that got read to the wife. Yeah, it's on and on. But every one of them, I think there's 57. Yeah, no, it's just stunning. It's stunning. I mean, it's not as good as Perfect. No, it's a really, but it really is important. It's, a lot, Alice Cross, okay, fine, that's great. It's nice entertainment and Her Perfect Life. But for some reason, and I looked into these, we're doing one on cops now, and that's another one. It's a mind blower.
oh, I'm
It's just a
sure.
mind blower. The stories and the good and the bad and the things that, it's like, I know a couple of priests, and they're like, I'm not a pederast. Everybody that looks at me, and the same thing, I've never shot anybody. I've never even shot my gun, and people look at me like I'm a murderer, At any rate, but it's an interesting area. Yeah.
This wonderful platform, and that's the thing that people, you've spent since you were 26 with the Thomas Berryman number, offering stories to people, and now they listen to you and they embrace you and they want to hear your stories, and so you've additionally, besides your entertaining fiction, you have opened the door to these very important stories that people now can relate to and rely on you to tell a good story, and that's just so important. I mean, I know that
Well, those two really worked out. And as you know, I mean, you always hope they're going to be great, and sometimes it's like, not quite exactly what and that's my thing in Hollywood. When I go out there, it's like they think I'm a mad person. I go, what do you want? I want that when I see this thing, I'm going to go, yay, I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
I
love it is a very good thing. I'll close and then bring Clayton in by saying, when the pandemic started, I was in Florida, and it was March the 12th, 2020, and I thought, get me out of here. I need to go home. I was at some book event, and I opened and I love to write on airplanes like you do, and I opened my laptop and I thought, okay, I'm going to write my book, and then I thought, no, I can't, I can't do this. I'm terrified. This is horrible. I need to go home. I need to be with my husband. I need to watch the news. And I thought it took me about 2 weeks to get to a point of saying, I'm a storyteller. This is what I do. I decided to write stories that entertain and make people miss their stop on the subway. And this is my job. I chose it with agency. I chose it with intent. And storytelling is important. And that got me, I said, it's always safe inside a book. It's always safe inside a book. And I think that's what we do. We're offering people stories. Young adults and kids and grown-ups and real life stories. This is what you do. I'm so honored that you agreed or offered.
Oh, yeah. Well, because that goes back to, I don't think we told this on air. Stop me sometimes. You already said that. When Hank and I met, I just, the night before, there were 2 interviews. It was a mystery writers thing. And the interview the night before was a horror show. Because when you do these, if you're the person who's doing the questioning, your job is really to get out of the way. That's what Johnny Carson did well. He would, and then get out of the way, unless, whoever you're with is a bomb, and then you have to come in and, but this person took like 40 minutes of the 60 minutes. It was like bizarre, like 10-minute questions. And then Hank and I did the next day, and it was a really wonderful back and forth. I thought, the way it should go, and hopefully that's what's happened here, a nice back and forth, I hope.
Oh, it's wonderful. You are the most generous, wonderful person in the world. And I know you're in Chicago going to a football game on Saturday, and the idea that you're sitting in a hotel room in Chicago talking to hundreds of people.
In the dark. It isn't as dark as it looks, but, we did have a problem, like trying to figure out how to do this, but, it is what it is.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to complain if they haven't been watching me. You guys have been doing great. I've been just riveted. I know we've gotten lots of questions. Shall we take a couple questions from folks? I have a few.
Yeah,
that
sure.
we wrote
Uh-huh.
down. Okay.
Jim is totally in the dark. You know, when the light just ceases and Jim disappears.
Right.
Right. We'll go until it all goes away. Well,
Hank is going to be on till midnight. It'll be great.
Anything you want, I'll answer.
one of the questions that has come up, Hank, what you were just talking about is that need to express, and this book with both with the combat boots and being in the ER, there's
Wow.
so much to condense.
Ta-da!
Thank you, honey.
So the question is, how do you decide what to leave out? You don't have 900 page books. Obviously, you don't want to have the stuff that's just marching in place. But have there been things that were too dark, where you said this is going to be too I just can't take that turn? Not just the swearing, but the subject matter. I'm sure as you're doing ER research, I've known some people that.
It's good. It's well good. Yeah, thank you. It's so much better. Well, look, I mean, we go through this with the fiction too. We'll be throwing out chapters or things we thought were going to work, not going to work, and sometimes the whole book. It only happened one, not the whole book. Well, actually, it did one. It's a long story. But with it's an interesting thing, both with the nurses and the military. Now I feel like Jesus. Okay, it's really good, sir. Thanks.
A big statement is coming now.
Yeah. Ooh. So really, it's good. Will you just not do anything now? Thank you. Where was I? Compact boots, blah, 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 blah.
I was just watching Suture and the Lights on it.
Yeah, no, it was interesting.
Yeah, you were saying there comes a point in every story once that you had to throw out a whole book, which everybody.
Oh no, with the thing, both with the vets and the nurses, when you initially start talking to them, they go, "Why are you talking to me? There's nothing interesting about my life," which is fascinating. I always had that feeling that everybody has at least one incredible story, something. At least one, and sometimes the people have a lot of them. So, but that was there were no, we did leave a bunch of people out, only because we tried to pick the best ones. And, at any rate, yeah.
Hank, how do you decide what to leave out? Do you have a certain or are there certain, edits that have been on the cutting room floor that you just really wish you could show some more light to?
No, I mean, I have to tell it. Well, it depends. In television, yes, that's very difficult. In television, I have this very finite amount of time. And so the idea of deciding, and that's another reason that I write about reporters, the idea of the process of deciding what to leave out. I may do 20 hours of interviews for a story, and the story might be 4 minutes long. So what is all the rest of that stuff? And why don't you need to know about that? So the idea of being a reporter is to take a whole lot of really complicated stuff and make it fascinating and interesting and irresistible and compelling. I don't want you to turn off the TV when you're watching my story. So you learn what's interesting. That's, what's compelling. It's the exact same thing in writing a novel. There's the thing whoever said about kill all your darlings. They're not my darlings if they glom up the book. I'm thrilled to cut things. I love when my books are too long when they start on the first draft. And I just love ripping the parts out that don't belong so I can reveal the story that's meant to be. So I know some writers have what they call compost piles of things that they've left out of the story, their precious prose that they left out. I don't have any of that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I'm happy to take it out. It's a joy to take it out, to see the book you meant to write. Do you see that, Jim? Do you have?
No, I agree, and it even relates to sentences and paragraphs. Sometimes, I can't pull that. That's such a wonderful sentence. Yeah, but it really doesn't. It shouldn't be here. And I think a lot of writers that don't make it, that's why they can't get rid of that stuff that they should. Very hard.
So I have to assume that you're both voracious readers as well as writers. How do you decide what to read next? And when do you stop reading something to go into the next? Kind of the same thing, but doing this for your own consumption.
Go ahead, Hank.
Well, it's not like it's a plan. It's just sort of what sounds good. I mean, that's so crazy, but I guess I'm a reader like everybody else. I say, "Ooh, that sounds good," and I read that. I don't my husband will pick a book, says that sounds good. He will read it and I'll say, how's the book, honey? And he'll say, nah. And I'll say, stop reading it then. Stop reading it. And he will not. And sometimes I just take them and I say, this book is going away. And I hide it. And he says he feels that he's made a contract with the author to finish it. And I say that, I think you've made a contract with the universe to read a book that you love. There's so many good books. So it's when the books start marching in place, as Jim says. I think, is something going to happen soon in this book? And, then when I forget about it is when I put it down. What about you?
I put down a lot of them. And it's not, I don't blame the author. I blame myself. When I was living in New York, I would go to the theater at times and walk out after the first act, not blame anybody, just like, this just isn't for me. But I walk away a lot. But it's the same thing. I mean, that sounds interesting. I just read Alpha, and it just sounded like it would be, and it was a pretty interesting story. But even with that, I found that at a certain point it was getting repetitive, and so I skipped a lot of the middle and went to the trial.
Well, it's interesting. I did a TEDx talk about how sometimes I read the ends of books first. Don't do it with our books, you guys. Don't do it with our books. But as a writer, it's very instructive. I read the first chapter, then I read the end, then I go back and start at the beginning again, and I see how the author got to where they were. And
well, I will occasionally, what I mentioned before about if somebody has a really good hook, and then it doesn't, so occasionally I'll start it and I'll go, it's a one note thing, but I still want to find out what the hell happened. So I will go and read the ending.
But you can figure out. I see someone in the comments, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do see people asking about the Jailhouse Lawyer, and I would please take a minute.
Just a quick thing about that is there is a real thing in a couple of states, Missouri, a couple of states, where they actually charge people for the time they spend in jail. And some of these poor people can't, literally, they have to stay in jail because they can't pay the bill, or they get out and it's like, people who went to college and have the debt, they have a debt that they're paying off. And it's kind of about that. And a lawyer who, she moves from a big city to a town where this kind of thing is going on, and she winds up actually in jail at a certain point. Like that. It's fun. It's a nice, whatever.
And it's a wonderful, entertaining story. It has a wonderful thing at the beginning that says, sometimes the best education a lawyer can get is a short stretch of hard time. So that's a real James Patterson-y fun hook to read.
So shifting gears a little bit, you both have, as a reporter, Hank, and James as a writer and a man of the world, you've met a lot of
man
people.
Of the world.
Okay, is that too much? Am I going
sure, why not? I'm in Chicago, man.
You're in Chicago. That's not where either of us are. There must be people, though, that you haven't met yet that you're anxious and would like to meet. How do we put it out there to the world? Who are you hoping to meet next? Or who would you like to?
Who would I like to write a book with?
Yeah, and why?
Putin. Oh yeah, man, boy, there's a book there.
Let's call him.
Yeah, let's not. I don't want to die. I'm just kidding, Vladimir. No need. Don't poison me.
He's already hearing you.
Yeah.
Okay, Hank, who are you interested in meeting next?
Oh my golly, that's so interesting, because I covered the Klaus von Bülow trial, and I talked with him for a while, and he was pretty fascinating. I interviewed Prince Charles, and he was pretty fascinating, although didn't really tell me much, it was pretty life-changing. Oh golly, I've never thought about this, who I would like to meet. Paul McCartney, at age 14, when I spent so many hours crying over the Beatles, it would be nice to tell him thank you. It would be nice to meet Paul Simon and tell him thank you. I think the people that I'd like to meet are people who um, gave me some insight and gave me some pleasure, whether it was music or reading or, we could sit for hours and talk about that. But it's hard to decide what to say to someone. Jim gets to write with them. And so I think, Dolly Parton is high on my list. I'd adore to meet her.
You have fun with her. I guess. Here's my last Dolly story. So
Good.
I mentioned that they're singing happy birthday to me over the phone, which she did, which was great. So then this big package arrives at the house. It's almost as tall as I am. And we open it up, and it's a guitar that she sent me for my birthday. And she's engraved on it, "Dear JJ, happy birthday. I will always love you, Dolly." Huh?
Did you burst into tears?
No, but I didn't burst into tears, but I loved it.
Song?
But that's the way she is. She's just so, when we went down to listen to the album down in Nashville, she personally came to the airport and picked us up. And the next morning we stayed at one of her places. And the next morning she drove us. She didn't drive, but she went to the airport with us at 7:15 in the morning.
Is she just like she seems? I mean, she seems adorable and funny and engaging and sort of.
And very smart. Very smart. I mean, it's a combo of yes, she is. She's very down to earth, and all her people are that way too. Everybody, we're now, because we're Hollywood and whatever the hell, and everybody we work with. Her PR person is wonderful. Her manager is a really smart guy, but very, very nice to work with. Yeah.
And you've both spent so much of your careers helping
Singing.
other people.
Yeah.
Right? You have in singing. Right?
Yeah.
You've helped other people. You've reached out to other communities. You've donated money and donated books and donated time and donated brain power to spreading the word about reading and singing and literacy.
I think a piece of that is where we came from, and she came from the hills of Tennessee, and my town was, I don't know, recently named one of the 6 most violent small towns in America, whatever. And so I think that's part of it. I think about growing up in Newburgh, and I think it's a gift that I still look at the world like a kid from that town. And that's why, I mean, like even this, going on this is great. I mean, what fun for a guy from Newburgh to be able to go on and have people listen and, be with a famous author or to be with Clinton, or, it's a positive. And to me, it is a gift. I don't get cynical about it. I mean, I don't overstate it. I'm very, like with Clinton, I mean, we're kind of pals. I can tell, I won't get into some of the stuff, but I can, when we're together, it's not like Mr. President.
But isn't that the thing? And we should close because the people have real lives. But I know there are some other questions, and I see Paula Mounier is here and Heather Gudenkauf is here, and so many wonderful people are here tonight, for which we're so grateful. But I do think it's the thing that you bring to all of us, and the thing that I hope that I have a lot of as well, is just so much joy and so much delight, and you just laugh and say, I am so lucky that this is all happening. And that's just part of this for me.
Yeah. No, well, whatever. I don't know. It's who I am. So anyway, this is wonderful. I miss Massachusetts. I mean, that's the one thing about traveling, just starting to travel again. So that's nice.
Well, come visit and we'll do.
Okay. All right. If you're down in Florida, come by with the hubby and we'll whatever. That'd be great to have a meal together if you're ever where we are.
Remember when we were
Which I won't tell for the same reason, because I don't want people to show up at my house with the blue lights and the. Exactly. I knew you were on television, so.
Yeah, and I knew you. Well, that's where that book came from. But remember when we were in the restaurant in Dallas and the restaurant was churning?
Yeah.
That was bizarre.
Well, that happened to me once, and it had been. I was in advertising, although I've been clean for over 25 years. And we did a shoot, and we said, do we drive back to LA? And so we got there very late, and the restaurant on the roof was still open. And we went up there, and we're all like out of it, and had a wine or something. And one of the LA buildings was there, and then all of a sudden I'm going like, holy whatever, that building is way over there now. And I had no idea, but it was. Yeah. I thought I was like either tripping or having a stroke or something, but it was one of those revolving restaurants, but we had no idea it was revolving. So anyway,
at least you know where. At least we think we know where we are, and it's
Yeah.
always a surprise when we.
I know where I am now. I'm in a dark hotel room. So anyway, thank you. This is great. Go get that book or whatever. Get it in the library, or if you don't want to wait on a big line, go to Haney's. Haney? Yeah.
Haley,
Okay.
Haley
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.
James,
Thank you,
Hank.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Thank you, everybody. This has been
Good
so
night.
wonderful. We look forward to doing this again. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.